still remember watching that hit and thinking, this isn't football anymore. Something's gone terribly wrong. Today we break down the worst injury in history for every NFL franchise. Real moments that stopped games and shook the league. Buffalo Bills. And here's where it gets even stranger. Damar Hamlin went in for a tackle during a Monday Night Football game in Week 17 against the Bengals and collapsed right there in front of a national television audience. Cardiac arrest after what looked like a routine hit. His heartbeat was restarted on the field, and somehow he came back. It changed how we see player safety forever. Miami Dolphins. But wait, Miami's defining moment came in Week 4 of 2022 against Cincinnati when Tua Tagovailoa was slammed to the turf, briefly lost consciousness, and was stretchered off with a concussion. That frightening scene amplified concerns, especially given the multiple head injuries that have repeatedly disrupted his career. New England Patriots. And here's where it gets darker. Darryl Stingley's preseason hit in 1978 left him with a broken neck and paralysis for life. A routine game turned into a tragedy in a blink, and it forever changed how the league views helmet and neck safety. New York Jets. Then there's Vinny Testaverde's ruptured Achilles in Week 1 of the 1999 season, a moment that deflated a Jets team with real Super Bowl hopes. His season ended before it began, and everything that year spiraled from that one twist of fate. Pittsburgh Steelers. And here's where it gets eerily unforgettable. Ryan Shazier went down during a 2017 Monday Night Football game while making a tackle, collapsing in pain and unable to move his legs. What seemed routine turned into a spinal contusion, ending his career and robbing Pittsburgh of its best defensive heart and swagger. Baltimore Ravens. This one stung deep. Jamal Lewis, coming off a Super Bowl run, tore ligaments in his knee during a 2001 training camp practice, wiping out a potential repeat title push. His bruising running style was central to the Ravens' identity, and losing him shifted the offense's balance at the worst possible time. Cleveland Browns. The Nick Chubb injury in 2023 was a devastating blow, a gruesome moment that derailed Cleveland's momentum. It stung even more after early optimism this year with key signings and returning talent fueling hope. Cincinnati Bengals. This part is bone-chilling. In Super Bowl 23, Tim Krumrie planted his foot and his leg twisted horrifically beneath him, breaking both tibia and fibula before a crowd of millions. The Bengals' defense was never the same that night, and their Super Bowl bid collapsed around them. Indianapolis Colts. And here's where the whole division shifted. Peyton Manning's neck problems can be traced back to a hit on October 2006, when his neck was violently twisted between two defenders, something former coach Tony Dungy has singled out as the likely origin of the chronic issue. Over the next several years, the issue worsened, culminating in May 2011 surgery to relieve a bulging disc, followed by additional procedures and a cervical fusion. His recovery left him unable to throw with a normal velocity, and Manning missed the entire 2011 season, ending his remarkable streak of starts and sending the Colts into a tailspin. Indy went from contender to seller, proving how one injury and the long, agonizing path back can rewrite history. Houston Texans. This one changed a franchise's heartbeat. In 2011, Matt Schaub was steering the Texans toward their first playoff run when a Liz Frank foot injury knocked him out mid-season. Houston suddenly lost rhythm, backups faltered, and what looked like a breakout year stalled. Fans still wonder how deep this team could have gone healthy. Tennessee Titans. The Derrick Henry injury in 2021 was particularly brutal. It was a Jones fracture of the foot, a break of the fifth metatarsal suffered in Week 8 against the Colts, a type of break that typically requires surgery and long recovery. Before going down, Henry was leading the NFL with 219 carries for 937 rushing yards and 10 touchdowns, on pace for another dominant campaign and possibly making history with back-to-back 2,000-yard seasons. The worst part? That fracture cost him 9 regular season games, though he still finished in the top 10 in rushing yards, carries, and rushing touchdowns despite missing more than half the season. A staggering testament to just how unstoppable he was when healthy. Jacksonville Jaguars. And here's the tragic what if. Tony Baselli was the Jaguars' first true star, a 5-time Pro Bowler and 3-time All-Pro left tackle anchoring a rising franchise. But in 2001, Baselli started just 3 games before a severe left shoulder injury, one that required multiple surgeries, landed him on injured reserve, and kept him off the field for the rest of the season. The shoulder damage proved devastating. Baselli was picked by the Houston Texans in the 2002 expansion draft, but never played a down for them because the injury never fully healed, forcing him to retire in July 2003 without returning to action. At the time, Baselli was widely regarded as one of the premier left tackles in football, a cornerstone protector during Jacksonville's best years, and losing him so abruptly robbed the Jaguars of a foundational piece just as the franchise was hitting its stride: Kansas City Chiefs. And here's where it hits home. In Week 15 of the 2025 season against the Los Angeles Chargers, Patrick Mahomes tore the ACL in his left knee, a devastating ligament injury that required surgery and ended his season. The blow not only eliminated the Chiefs from playoff contention for the first time in his career, but also raised serious concerns about his recovery timeline and mobility moving forward, especially since ACL rehab can stretch well into the next season. Las Vegas Raiders. This part is tragic football lore. Bo Jackson, a once-in-a-generation athlete, dislocated his hip during the 1991 playoff run, ending his NFL career instantly. What should have been one more autumn of dual-sport greatness became a nightmare, and the Raiders' fabled season collapsed without its brightest star: Denver Broncos. And here's the kicker. In Week 4 of the 1999 season against the New York Jets, Broncos star Terrell Davis tore both his ACL and MCL in his right knee while trying to make a tackle after an interception, a devastating blow that ended his season. Davis had just rushed for 2,008 yards and won the NFL MVP in 1998, and losing a running back of his elite status robbed Denver of its pounding ground game. Though he battled back and played sporadically afterward, the injury marked the beginning of a steep decline in his workload and effectiveness, cutting short what could have been an even more historic career. Los Angeles Chargers. Drew Brees suffered a devastating dislocated right shoulder with a complete labrum tear and partial rotator cuff damage in the final game of the 2005 season with the Chargers when a defender landed on him while he tried to recover a fumble. That injury made San Diego wary of a long-term commitment, and Brees signed with the New Orleans Saints instead. In New Orleans, Brees went on to win Super Bowl 44 and be named the game's MVP, cementing a Hall of Fame career that the Chargers never reached, despite sticking with Phillip Rivers at quarterback. Dallas Cowboys. And here's the tragic what if. In 2016, during a preseason game against the Seattle Seahawks, Tony Romo suffered a compression fracture of his L1 vertebrae in his lower back when he awkwardly landed while sliding under pressure, sidelining him for much of the season. That specific back fracture rattled Dallas, and coupled with his history of clavicle breaks and other issues, effectively opened the door for Dak Prescott and significantly altered the Cowboys' trajectory, raising real worries about Romo's ability to stay healthy long-term. Philadelphia Eagles. This part changed Philly's offense forever. Randall Cunningham's torn ACL in 1991 came early in a season that looked poised for greatness. His unique scrambling and arm flipped the script for the Eagles' offense, and losing that speed and spark altered their trajectory, turning a breakout year into a season of what could have been. New York Giants. A more defining worst injury for the Giants came in 2014 when Victor Cruz tore his patellar tendon, ending his season and derailing a key offensive weapon. The brutal knee injury changed the Giants' plans and forced them to adjust without one of their most explosive playmakers. Washington Commanders. And here's one of the most iconic moments in NFL history. Joe Theismann's compound fracture, snapped like a twig live on Monday Night Football, was so graphic it lives in highlight reels and nightmares. That one hit didn't just end a career. It became the benchmark for football's brutality. Green Bay Packers. Here's a heartbreaking twist. Sterling Sharp looked like he was building a Hall of Fame speed run. Pro Bowls, All-Pro honors, and Favre's most trusted weapon. But it all flipped in Week 16 of 1994 against the Atlanta Falcons when Sharp's head snapped back on a run block and he started feeling numbness and tingling in his arms, a kind of warning sign you don't ignore. He tried to push through and even played Week 17 at Tampa Bay, but after further evaluation, doctors found looseness between the top vertebrae in his neck, and he was held out of the playoffs, then ultimately forced to retire because it was too dangerous to take another hit. No slow decline, no farewell tour, one late season sequence, and the Packers lost a receiver who could take over a game on any snap. Chicago Bears. This one still makes fans wince. In 2011, Johnny Knox collided with a defender and suffered a severe spinal injury that bent his vertebrae in a way nobody should bend. He never returned to the NFL, and the play became one of the most shocking career enders in recent Bears history. Detroit Lions. And here's where the stadium went silent. Mike Utley was blocking on Thanksgiving in 1991 when a hit fractured his vertebrae, leaving him paralyzed from the chest down. Instead of fear, his thumbs-up gesture to the crowd became iconic, but the moment marked the end of his career and a defining Lions tragedy. Minnesota Vikings. This part should hurt to watch. In Week 13 of the 2009 season, Vikings linebacker E.J. Henderson's left femur snapped in half when he collided with teammate Jamarcus Sanford while pursuing a tackle against the Cardinals. His leg twisted violently, and he was carted off in shock. What makes it even more remarkable is that Henderson didn't just rehab. He came back for the start of the 2010 season, returning to his Pro Bowl form after a grueling recovery that included a titanium rod in his thigh and months of painstaking rehab. New Orleans Saints. And here's where it feels like fate. Michael Thomas's high ankle sprain in 2020 wasn't just a missed game. It cost him multiple prime seasons and left the Saints without their top receiving weapon. What should have been peak years instead turned into rehab and frustration. Atlanta Falcons. This one cut deep. Atlanta's star running back Williams Andrews was one of the NFL's most dominant offensive weapons in the early 1980s, piling up over 1,300 rushing yards each season and leading the league in yards from scrimmage in 1981. But during a 1984 preseason practice, he suffered a catastrophic left knee injury, tearing multiple ligaments, damaging cartilage, and stretching the perioneal nerve. After planting his foot on a routine cutback, a non-contact freak accident that left his lower leg partially paralyzed. At 28, Andrews was coming off 4 straight Pro Bowl seasons and was widely on a trajectory toward a Hall of Fame consideration before the injury wiped out the entire 1984 and 1985 seasons. Though he returned in 1986, he was never the same and retired shortly thereafter, leaving fans to wonder what might have been if that single blow hadn't ended one of the era's greatest running back careers. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And here comes the gut punch. Cadillac Williams exploded onto the scene as a rookie, only to tear his patellar tendon in 2007 and again the next season. Both devastating injuries derailed a rare Buc star's momentum, leaving a running back who could have defined an era instead rebuilding. Carolina Panthers. This part should hurt. Cam Newton's NFL journey was marked by brutal setbacks. In the 2014 preseason, he suffered a hairline rib fracture when a hit drove a defender's knee into his side, forcing him to miss the Panthers' season opener and snap his streak of consecutive starts. Each injury didn't just sideline him, it clipped Carolina's best shot at sustained greatness. San Francisco 49ers. And here's where destiny took a cruel turn. In 2025, All-Pro linebacker Fred Warner suffered a dislocated broken ankle that ended his season and left the 49ers scrambling without the heart of their defense. Warner's leadership and physicality anchored one of the league's best units, and losing him, alongside other stars like Nick Bosa, showed how quickly a contender can be derailed. Seattle Seahawks. This one changed the identity of a defense. Seahawk hard-hitting safety Cam Chancellor was the backbone of Seattle's Legion of Boom, terrorizing offenses and setting the tone with bone-crunching hits. A severe neck injury in 2017 landed him on injured reserve and ultimately forced his exit from the sport, ending the era of dominance that had defined Seattle's defense for years. Los Angeles Rams. This one's a weird twist. The Rams' post-Super Bowl slide was punctuated by Kurt Warner's significant injuries in 2002, including a broken finger on his throwing hand that ended his season and disrupted the greatest show on turf. With Warner's play impeded and his grip compromised, Mark Bulger seized the opportunity and eventually took over as the starter, leading Los Angeles to move on and release Warner in 2004. A decision shaped by the ripple effects of that injury and the team's need for stability at quarterback. Arizona Cardinals. This chapter hit like a gut punch. Cardinals franchise QB Kyler Murray suffered a season-ending foot injury in 2025, robbing Arizona of its best chance to climb the NFC West and cement a future playoff. The injury not only derailed their year, but also cast doubt on the long-term future of a former number 1 pick still searching for consistent success. From broken ankles to career-ending hits and shattered seasons, these injuries show just how fragile NFL dreams can be. Which one shocked you the most? Drop your take in the comments, and if you enjoyed the breakdown, hit like and subscribe. We've got much more NFL chaos coming your way.